Thank you for joining us for the Women in Entrepreneurship, the Challenges and Triumphs panel discussion. My name is Laura Kelly, and I'm a first-year full-time MBA candidate at UCLA Anderson. I had the pleasure of putting together today's panel discussion on entrepreneurship. The panel will include a 40-minute discussion followed by 15 minutes of Q&A. Please use the CVent platform to submit your questions for the panelists and upvote any questions that you would like asked. A big thank you to our sponsor, Fritz Demopoulos, for supporting Anderson's Women's Business Connection and this panel on entrepreneurship. Fritz is a UCLA Anderson alum and has been involved in a number of entrepreneurial and philanthropic activities within the Asian region over the past 2 decades. He is passionate about establishing businesses and creative disruption, exploring the big ideas behind science and science fiction, and supporting science education. He is also a supporter of the UCLA Bruins and is on the board of advisors at UCLA School of Earth, Planetary and Space Sciences, and the UCLA Center for Management of Enterprise in Media, Entertainment, and Sports. I'd like to now introduce Pam Dressler. Pam is a UCLA Anderson alum who will be moderating today's discussion. Since graduating from Anderson, Pam has worked for entrepreneurial food companies, big and small. Since 2004, she's been the president of Cypress Grove Cheese, and since 2017, she has been in charge of 3 other dairy food companies, Nienberg Goat Milk, Redwood Hill Creamery, and Cowgirl Creamery. We're honored to have her with us here today. Pam, I'll turn it over to you to start the panel.
Thanks, Laura, and welcome everybody. It's really very fun to be here with these impressive and inspiring women. So as Laura just said, this is a panel where we're going to tap into the wisdom and experience of these women and learn from their journeys. They're all at various stages of development of their organizations. And so we're going to ask questions about how they got there, what they like best about it, what they wish they knew more, that type of stuff. Okay, so let's start off by having them introduce themselves with maybe a 30-second overview if you'd be so kind. Okay, so how about we start off with Jovanna?
Sure. Hi. Thank you guys for having me. I'm super happy to be here. So I started my career in consulting at Deloitte, and then I went to Anderson to pivot into product management and spent some time at Apple as a lead product manager there at the intersection of retail and tech. I worked within the retail org, and then decided that I wanted to go somewhere smaller, a little bit scrappier, and found my way over to Rent the Runway. And I'm currently the director of product marketing and customer strategy, where I lead growth and circular platform initiatives for the company.
Thanks. And then Julie?
Yeah. I think you're muted.
Sorry. Hey, I'm Julie Uhrman. I am president and co-founder of Angel City Football Club, which is a new women's professional soccer club that we're launching in Los Angeles next year, April, this time next year. Definitely a serial entrepreneur. It would take me 30 minutes to go through my LinkedIn, but a lot of time in gaming, media, and tech. Was the founder of a company called Ouya, which was an Android-based game console company, and sold that back in 2016 to Razer, which is the leading provider of gaming peripherals. And right now really focus on sports, entertainment, and product development as we build something with Angel City a little bit differently than most sports clubs come to life.
Cool, can't wait to hear more. Okay, and then Julianne.
So I started my career off in the entertainment world, and a lot of people don't think that that's necessarily a business, but it is. I kind of look at my personal life and then my celebrity as a business, and so that was my first venture into really understanding that I can actually be a brand and a business. After kind of doing the things that made me feel very self-expressed, I wanted to contribute what I had learned, and especially in the mindfulness world and the body and how to feel more connected and whole. And I started KINRGY, which is really connecting those 3 elements of body, mind, and soul expression. So that is my current baby right now that I'm focusing on. Although I do have a production company, Canary House, and recently just co-founded a company with my best friend, Nina, and venturing out into the wine industry. So learning a lot, but also just the idea of loving to create, and who knows what's out there, but I believe anything's possible.
Wonderful. Okay, so the first question actually has to do with what you were just talking about, Julianne, which is about transitions, right? And kind of maybe you could talk us through how your decisions to transition from being an entertainer into entrepreneurship, and kind of what led you in that path.
Well, I think I've always been a creator. It's funny. Most of the people say, "Oh, what are you? More of a dancer, a singer, or an actress?" I'm like, well, I'm all of them because that's just who I am. But also, why do I have to choose? I'd always ask that. And so I've always been creating my whole life. I just didn't realize that that was, a form of entrepreneurship. And so when I really think about why I wanted to transition, though, it was about service. It was about contributing to the world. I'd done so much for myself. In my early years with entertainment, that I wanted to be able to contribute. I think, when you get later on in your life, you're like, it's not about me anymore. It's what I can do to serve. So that was a big mindset shift and a heart shift. And then I also thought too, I'm a business owner in my brand, but I'm also a business operator, and I don't really want to do that every single day. So as far as, the transition over into having a company, I really wanted to find a way where I didn't have to be on camera every single day to earn my way. I wanted to be able to build a sustainable infrastructure to where the company is going to grow on its own, and I can also watch and enjoy it at the same time.
Great. Thanks a lot. How about you, Jovanna? How did you transition, or what made you decide to go from Apple to Rent the Runway? And then as a corollary, why are you passionate about retail tech? What is retail tech?
Yeah, no, great question. So I would say I loved my time at Apple and I learned a ton. I mean, it's just such a fascinating company to work at. I worked with some really wonderful people and we brought to life some really awesome products. And I think working at a company of that scale, anytime we launched a product, it was immediately seen by millions and millions of people in 36 countries, 26 languages. The scale was just absolutely incredible. But working at a more mature company, it can be a little bit, it can just move a little bit slower. And we were in such an established space already. And I was just ready to transition to something a little bit smaller, faster, a little bit more ambiguous, where sort of I could help contribute to the future of the business. And I was able to find that, so, at Rent the Runway, it was also a company whose mission I very much believe in. It's really all about empowering women, flipping the fashion industry sort of on its head and challenging all of these really traditional sort of ideologies around fashion, and just really allowing more and more women to access something that's historically not been very accessible. So I love that. And it's very cool because it's never just about the clothes. It's about how the clothes make you feel, how the clothes allow you to show up and present yourself. And so it's so much more than just the fashion and the brands and the clothes. And I really, really love that. So that was the reason for the transition. And I found that, we've really pioneered an industry. We have some competitors, we still continue to lead, but we're sort of figuring it out as we go. And that's so fun to me. So yes, we can try to look at some competitors or even comparable companies when we're trying to solve something. But a lot of times we're just trying our best, talking to customers, putting together a strategy and testing and learning. So I really love that. It's really scrappy. There's such a culture of just testing and iterating and learning. And we talk a lot about how we're sort of in the second founding moment post-COVID because we were so impacted by COVID. So it's exciting to kind of start to build the company back up again. And retail tech, I just love the intersection of tech and retail because as many of you guys probably experience when you're interacting with just any retail experience, whether it's online, offline, you can probably think of millions of ways that it could be better, easier, faster, smoother. You can find things faster, you can transact quicker, and tech helps to unlock a lot of these things that just allow for more seamless, more delightful customer experiences. And I just love thinking about those things. And I think there's such an opportunity. I think we're going to see some very, very cool things happen in the retail space that are going to be really driven by technology.
Cool. Well, it sounds like you're absolutely blazing the trail there. And now you're doing a second time after COVID. So Really fun. I'm going to not ask Julie about transitions because, as she was saying, serial entrepreneur, we'd be on for a long time hearing about all your numerous transitions. But an area that you might be able to give us, or I'm sure you will be able to provide insight, is about finding capital, right? And there's two kinds of capital, right, Julie? There's the money, and then there's the human capital, right? So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your journey on finding capital for some of these.
Human capital is harder than money capital. When you're an entrepreneur, it's like that core team is so important. And I think the one sort of fallacy is that the people you started with are the people you're going to end with. A lot of people want to be a startup person, like they want to be like Jovanna and get in and get their hands dirty and work across a lot of different areas. And ultimately, you may find out that's not what they're good at, even though they want it. And so being an entrepreneur and a leader, one of the hardest things is making decisions on human capital quickly, because you are moving so fast. And if you're a single founder, it's even more important, because you have to be able. I was a single co-founder at Ouya, and I just had to do everything. And you can't possibly do everything. You can't do everything well. And then when you start to delegate, if it's not the right people, you can't blame them either, because it really does. It is really your responsibility. With Angel City, I am the leader of the team, but the team is so incredible and so excellent at what they do. When you find a team that you can really hold accountable and wants that level of authority and authorship, it makes all the difference. And you just hit your milestones so much faster. I mean, it sounds obvious, it's just not. And being really ruthless about the early team is really important. Financial capital, having said that, is also incredibly difficult. I would say the world is opening up certainly to female entrepreneurs, and that's not only the number of female founders, but also the number of female investors and advisors. When you look at pre-seed and seed funds, there's a ton of incredible funds, as well as organizations like All Raise that'll help you connect and find women that might be interested in you. I do think the men are waking up to the fact that women actually spend more than 50% of the dollars in the household, and that they are continuing to spend more. And when you look at consumer products in general, more targeted towards women, family, and kids. And again, the women hold the purse strings. And so I think there's slowly starting to be a mental shift. And then I guess the last thing I would say is, don't look to others to do what it is you want to do, because then you're just going to be stymied, because the majority of the money has always been raised by men, and it's always been raised the same way. When we built Angel City, we went about it incredibly differently. There are 3 female founders, which you probably never hear about in professional sports. Natalie Portman, the actress and activist, a woman by the name of Karen Nortman, who's a venture capitalist here in Los Angeles at Upfront Ventures, and then myself, who's an entrepreneur and gaming and media exec. So we didn't let that stop us. The other thing was, you typically want to buy expansion rights when you have all the net worth requirements and you have a stadium. And we didn't have the net worth requirements, and we didn't have a stadium, but we sort of impressed upon the league that we would get it, and we can do it differently if people believe in what our mission and our purpose is, and really have them to start thinking differently about how do you want to build something. And with Angel City, I've raised a lot of money. It has been on the easier side of raising, which is still to say it's still been incredibly challenging, but it's because our approach is so different, where we're leading with purpose. And it sounds, I don't know, it may sound strange. It's like, what's your mission? What's your goal? What's your P&L? What are you trying to accomplish, right? And what's your return on investment? That's what people care about. And with Angel City, we didn't do that. In fact, we were very clear in saying that we wanted to build an organization where mission and capital could coexist. We want to lead with purpose and passion to drive to profitability. But ultimately, every single thing we do, we want to have a positive impact in our community and make a difference on and off the pitch. And that was actually a really hard pitch for investors to understand. I mean, we got a ton of no's because they didn't know how to evaluate us, right? Like, are you a traditional startup? So what's your ROI? What's your return on, what's your return on investment? How long until money comes out? Or are you this purpose, mission-oriented company that's more like a charity? So like, how does that work? And we have to do a lot of education to explain we're both, and that we're going to get further with this mission, because especially as we try to address a younger audience that cares about your purpose and cares about how you show up in the world, they're going to gravitate to our brand. And that's why, again, like with Angel City, we talk about ourselves as being a global brand that happens to have a football club, because it lets you to think about the world differently. And then when you have 60 investors and a dozen or so that are celebrities, it makes sense. So I would just say, don't be limited by what people have done in the past. There's a lot more opportunities out there. It is still incredibly difficult and hard. Don't be too precious about your valuation. Get going, because once you get going, you can raise it a lot faster. And find people that truly believe in what it is you're doing, not just writing a check. Because inevitably you're going to need more money. And if they're just writing you a check, they're not going to be there down the road, versus if they really believe in you.
That's great advice. Julianne, do you want to add on to that when it comes to the human capital side of things or the actual fundraising?
Absolutely. First of all, Julie, you just nailed it on the head. That was incredible. Thank you so much for articulating it so beautifully and simply. I've definitely experienced, the raising of funds and making sure that I am a single founder. And so that has been extremely difficult to find the team that is going to be there from the beginning and not have a lot of turnover. Although one of the things that I learned very quickly was to fail fast, and that, to find hire slow, fire fast it's a terrible way to say it, but it's true. And to fail fast and keep going, and always, staying with the integrity of what the mission is and the purpose. But it's been very challenging. We did a pre-seed round, friends and family, to start. And immediately we had VCs coming in wanting to invest, and it was really hard to say no, but I was like, no, because we're not ready for that. We're not ready for all these board members. We're not ready for, full blown opinions on something that they actually don't have the pure intent of what this company is trying to fulfill. So it was a hard no, hard pass. That will come later, but it was the education of really trying to explain what we're trying to do here, that intersectionality between like a company that's going to make money, as well as the purpose and the mission driven, purpose behind it. And with KINRGY especially, we're here to serve. I mean, it's a service oriented business. We're not here to sell you stuff you don't need. We're here to enhance your life. And it's through, your own belief in yourself, through fitness, through mindfulness, through expression, through community. Community is the biggest thing. And so to be able to say it's not a regular fitness company, it's a wellness company, but it's not really a wellness company. It's an expression company, but it's not really an expression company. It's an energy company. And they're like, we don't understand because it doesn't exist. And I'm like, exactly, it doesn't exist. And so it's great because you need something that doesn't exist. So it's the education of why. It's finding the people around you with your human capital, with your team, with everyone around you that has the culture of the company so ingrained in us that we can't even walk out the door without it, like we're breathing and living it. So with that integrity held, it actually makes things super easy and super clear to say no. The no's are often the greatest things for us to actually say we've done, is to say no versus say yes. And I'm very, very proud of my team, and I would not be able to do any of it without them. Because, you know what? I will say this. I'll give you a little quirky insight. I did a project with Dolly Parton, and Dolly Parton, I was telling her about all of the things that I love to do. And Dolly Parton is a smart businesswoman. And she said to me, you know what? You're a vision, you're an artist, you're visionary, you're an artist. I was too. I wanted a theme park. I didn't know how to build a theme park, but you know what? I hired people who did. So I hired smarter people, which means I was the smarter one in her whole Dolly expression. And she goes, so at the end of the day, I have a theme park. So the idea of finding your strengths and knowing your weaknesses as well, and realizing that you don't have to do it all. You just have to find the right team to support the trifecta of like the visionary, the entrepreneur, and the manager, like how do we like get that trifecta so that you can stay in what makes you feel creatively fulfilled? And that little Dolly Parton moment for me was like, okay, I can stay artist visionary and really create the team around me that is going to be epic. So that was a long-winded answer, but I'm very excited and passionate. And I just really, really hope that everyone listening here is coming from the heart of what and their gut and like just the passion, as Julie said, to create something that you get this excited about.
Yeah, definitely you're exuding that, and you can really feel it. And it also got the theme of education from you too. You're having to educate potential investors, and then if they do get it, the light bulb goes off, right? Mm-hmm. Let's just finish up with Jovanna then. You said you had to raise some money during COVID, right? But imagine that was a trial.
Yeah. So RTR is no stranger to fundraising. I mean, we're a pretty capital intensive business and are constantly fundraising. But we most recently raised a round in 2020. And I mean, it was a really big moment for the company, obviously, because I think it signaled that there is belief in the company and the future of the business, which I think was just major for just like morale in the entire organization. But very early on in the pandemic, like leadership had to make very like bold, quick decisions to secure the financial health of the business. I mean, our business really dried up. If everyone is staying home, there is less of a need to spend, X amount of dollars to rent your wardrobe every month. And you're not going to events and things like that. So the philosophy was really just to cut capital and operational expenditures and raise additional funding so that we could just survive COVID. And at that time, we didn't know if COVID was going to be a 1-year thing or a 3-year thing. So the hope was just to raise enough money to just weather the storm, regardless of how long it was going to last. And then once we got past the question of just like immediate survival, we used the time and capital to just really, really hone in on medium and long-term strategy. And I think we just got really, really like laser focused. And I think that was also really, really impactful. And I think has been key to helping set us up for success in the future. But our belief and like how we appealed to investors is just that the value prop of the company is going to be more relevant than ever coming out of the pandemic. And it's actually something we're seeing now, like, from just like a cultural perspective, there's people are just like really excited to get dressed again and just like enthusiastic about this idea of just getting dressed and, being around people and gathering again. And there's just this talk of like sort of this like roaring 20s environment post pandemic. And I think having this like endless closet and access to fashion, all these different ways of accessing it really just like meets this change and just like cultural shift, societal mindset. And then we saw a lot of key like customer trends due to the pandemic. And I think this just spans across retail overall, but customers care more about value. They care more about sustainability. They are shopping more with their values. And so this is all stuff that just is great for Rent the Runway. Like we believe in our business, like all those things are very core to our business. And so mentioned kind of we got really focused from a medium and long-term strategy perspective. We really evolved our offerings significantly over the past year to just strengthen the business. So I led strategy to launch resale overall, and that just provides another point of access. So we had one-time rentals, we have a subscription, and now like anyone is going to be able to buy pre-loved items, which is, as we know, is like more sustainable, extends the life of clothing. So that's very, very exciting and launching soon. We evolved our subscription offerings to be fully customizable and super flexible. So before you had to choose a plan and you kind of stuck with it. And now we're like, everyone's lives like flex up and down month to month. You don't have the same number of events in one month as the other. And now our plans are fully customizable. And then the last thing that we did was we had 5 retail stores across the country, and we just decided to close them. And instead, we're opening up these like drop boxes all over the country. So instead of these 5 stores serving just like 5 cities, we could expand our drop box network, have hundreds of drop boxes all over the country. So it's just as easy for you to drop off your clothes as it is to like, on your way to work to grab a coffee. So it's very exciting. We got really, really focused, and just everyone's really optimistic about the future with all these big changes.
It's like a case study in flexibility and pivoting fast, right? I mean, we read all these case studies in school, and you guys just lived it in the last 12 months, didn't you?
Totally. Nice experience.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of people watching this who I think probably have lots of good ideas about starting their own company, right? So you guys have all done that. So someone has an early idea, where do you start? And then what do you do next? It's like the quintessential question here, right? Hey, Julie, why don't you hit that one first?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Today, people want to see things before they invest. So the days of just doing a PowerPoint and trying to raise money is difficult because the cost of tech has gone down so much to get a prototype or a beta or just some sort of survey, something up and running. As an entrepreneur, it's frustrating. It's like, I can't do it unless I have something. Unless I have something, I can't do it. And there's this constant sort of struggle, especially if you're not a tech entrepreneur, which I'm not. Like, I can't just go and code it myself on the business side, right? So it's a challenge. So I would say, first and foremost is, it's really simply, but like, get your pitch down, know exactly what it is you're building, know the market size, know why there's value and benefit to it. Look at, you're always going to need funding. Julianne said it best, like friends and family is really the best first path because that allows you to get that first product into the marketplace. So figure out how you can raise money from friends and family. And your pitch is always, you may never see this money again.
Yes.
Whatever you're giving me, like, kiss it goodbye. You may never see it again. And like, just be really honest about that because that is truthful. And they're not really investing in your idea. They're investing in you and your passion and your excitement and the belief that they have in you. But yeah, I mean, try to go to friends and family, raise some money so you can show some context of what you're building. Obviously with the soccer club, that was impossible. But what we did was very clearly was lay out the milestones and the timeline and what we're going to do and why, and had a lot of data about, actually we didn't have a lot of data, but I worked really hard to sort of show the financials of a soccer club, which is really different than sort of a tech company. It's much simpler, much easier to understand sort of ins and outs as far as costs and revenue. So understand what it is, try to get to some semblance of something to show. And then the core team is really important. You don't have to have the whole team, but again, like if you're a business person, they're going to know who the tech person is who's building it. I would say finding a tech co-founder is probably the most difficult thing you will do. And so if you think you want to be an entrepreneur and you think you want to go into something that requires tech, which is probably everything, I would start networking now. Start growing your base of people and your network so that you can reach those people because it's absolutely critical. And so that's what I would do.
Yeah, awesome advice. Thanks very much. Julianne, you want to expound on that?
That last part for sure, because I am not technologically great at things like that, but that's the way that the world is working. In fact, KINRGY started out and we were going to be a bricks and mortar business, and we had just gone on tour. With Oprah last year, we had just like started our process of creating locations to do pop-ups, and then the pandemic hit, so we had to pivot really fast and go digital as well. And that was we had the plans to do that, but the following year we were going to start building our digital platform the following year. So to have the pivot happen so fast, that tech component was so challenging and probably the most, costly thing that we did because we didn't have the right company and the right resource. And so definitely if you are thinking of tech, start networking for sure. And just, look around. And if that is going to be a co-founder of yours, even better, because it is something that they just have the knowledge and the wisdom and the experience with. I would also just say, if you're how to start and why to start and all those questions, I think, I was just looking at Sarah Blakely and her masterclass that just came out. And, she basically said that everybody has $1 million idea at one point in their life, but it's if you're going to be able to execute it or not. And so if you have an idea and like you're passionate about it, then go with the passion versus the idea, because those ideas are going to float in and out constantly. But if there is something with like true belief that you have, I mean, as Julie said, people are going to invest in you. So if you believe it and you own it and you're going to like see this thing through, that's what people are going to invest in. I would just say finding the thing that you are like, you're thinking about when you're going to bed, you're thinking about when you're waking up. And I will say that the way that culture is shifting, and I'm so grateful for this, is, as Jovanna was saying, which is like, people want sustainability. People want to feel like they're doing good in the world. So finding something that, I don't know, maybe is something that is more impact driven, an impact driven idea is going to, again, not only fulfill something that's happening culturally, but I think, again, you'll be able to sleep better at night because you'll know you're offering and putting and contributing to the world versus cluttering it. So I feel like if you can think that way as you're starting to generate and innovate ideas, it just feels more sustainable and pure and good. So that would be my offer of suggestion as you're starting to come up with what you want to create.
Okay, super.
I would just add to that, because I think Julie touched on like networking, finding the right team. Julianne touched on like, making sure that you're doing something you're passionate about and you're excited about, and just kind of getting started. And I think if you have an early idea, I think about it from the customer lens, like, just go out and talk to people before you even start building something. And if it's like a kind of a consumer type of product, find ways of scrappily testing your ideas. You can, throw up a landing page with key value props, see how many people sign up and are interested, run some paid ads. You could create a prototype, see if people are willing to pay. I think that's like one of the greatest sort of indicators of whether you might be onto something. Is like, are people willing to pay for this, for this thing? So as much as you can try to like learn and identify who your customer is before you even build anything, I think that could be really, really helpful. I've done it with like other ideas I've had. You just send a quick survey to like a bunch of people in my network and just see, because I think you don't want to fall into the trap of like trying to get something perfect, or building something that there might not even be like a demand for or a customer for. So I think just trying to test and talk to people early on, I think could be really impactful as well.
Thanks. And do you think there's also a component about women need to have like a tough skin, because there's going to be rejection along the way, right? When you have a brand new idea and you're trying to explain it to people. I mean, isn't that something that you're going to encounter? I would imagine you all encountered that, right? How did you handle it?
I've heard more no in my lifetime than probably anyone that I know. It's just, you can't, it's hard. Look, it's hard not to be emotional. It's hard not to take it personally, but at the end of the day, you absorb it and you move on to the next thing, and you have to take from the no something. Either, they didn't get it, which happens a lot. A lot of times people don't necessarily get your idea. Like, It's not, if they don't do it personally, they have a hard time putting themselves in the shoes of maybe someone who will. And Julianne has probably experienced that when you talk about mindfulness and fitness, right? And lifestyle, right? And how are you different? Like, you're like everything else. It's like, no, we're not. And so a lot of times they say no because they just don't understand. You also get no's because it's easier. It's like easier to say no than to find a reason to say yes. And it's easier to say no than to like stay in the conversation. When I did Ouya, I got 40 no's up and down Sand Hill Road. And like, it was actually kind of comical. Like, we started off, I think, wanting to raise 15 million, then it was like 8 million, then it was 5, then it was 3, and then it was $1.5 million. I was like just trying to get to a yes because I believed in so much. It was like, let me just prove something. And Ouya was so difficult because it was a hardware and software play. And it's like, I can't do anything with $1 million. I have to actually build like a physical product, right? So once it got down to $1.5 million, it was just comical. Like, I couldn't do anything. And I was literally faced with, like, either I have to stop trying because it requires a significant amount of capital, or find another way. And at that time, Kickstarter was starting to make it into sort of the general mindset of people. And we sort of said, why not? And went to Kickstarter, and luckily found our product market fit and raised a lot of money. And then all the venture capitalists came back to like, oh, hey, look, you have an audience, right?
I get it.
Yeah, it works, right? You can make it happen. So I think that sort of plays kind of a big role. But, even with Angel City Football Club, it's like, wait, you're starting a women's team. You're starting a team in LA when there's already 11 professional teams. Wait, let's go back. This is women's soccer. Like, the US doesn't care about soccer. Look at the MLS, right? And so, and you're going to give 10% of your revenue back, and like, you haven't made any money yet. Like, how does this even work, right? And so you just have to stay like incredibly committed and believe in what you're doing. And the reality is, like, at least I have found, there is a yes. Like, there is a yes. Like, I've always found a yes. And so 10 no's, 20 no's, 40 no's, like, if you have the stomach to keep going, like keep going, because you will find your way. You'll find your way to the right people, but you'll also refine your pitch so much that it's even like your pitch day 1 is nowhere near as good as your pitch on day 100. It's just not. And so you'll find your yes. You just have to keep trying. But it's really, really hard. And so I highly recommend, especially if you're a single co-founder, Julianne, I'm wondering if you like find someone to talk to that is like not your partner, not your spouse, not your best friend, not your coworker, like find another entrepreneur, founder, someone who's doing the exact same thing as you, because they will be willing to listen to you and give you advice and vice versa. And that advice is actually relevant versus somebody like your partner who either really wants to support you, so tells you what you want to hear, or wants to be really helpful and tells you what you don't want to hear. And either way, they lose. Either way, it is like a no-win. But my life got a lot better when I found like another founder that I could talk to, because they truly, truly get it in a way that nobody else will get it. And then you're not, harassing your friends and talking about it all the time.
And I'd love to add to that, Julie, because I think other founders also want to share their experience. I think, and especially female founders that I've found, they're like, they just want to help you. And if they can help you not experience the level of stress that they went through, they're going to offer all of the wisdom that they have. So you'd actually be really surprised by reaching out to certain people, like KINRGY. We were like, at the very beginning, trying to come up with our elevator pitch. We were like, we're the Soul Cycle of dance. And so I called Julie and Elizabeth right away. I, reached out to Melanie Kaplan, who was the CEO at the time, talking to Susan Paley, who, was the CEO of Beats, like figuring out music. I mean, I just was like hustling in a way that I thought they're not going to care to talk to me. Because they're doing their own thing. But they honestly, I think as people who've gone through things, you can empathize so much more. And so, you know what somebody's going through, so you want to give advice. I mean, even just through the experiences that I've had starting companies, my friends are reaching out to me, and all of a sudden I'm on the phone for an hour and a half, just telling them not to start the company. Not really. I'm telling them they should, but just giving them the backstory of how to make it easier and connecting them with people. And so I think just the idea of putting yourself out there, and this was a great thing that I think it was Bryan Cranston, he's an actor, and he said that he hates to audition. So this is going back to the getting told no. He hates to audition. All actors hate to audition. But when you go into an audition, instead of going in there thinking, I have to get this job, I need to get them to like me, it's actually an opportunity for me to show up and do what I do great, and like something that I love. And so taking that scenario and putting it into your pitch, it's like, this is an opportunity for me to share what I'm so passionate about, versus I have to go into this room and they need to like me and get me. And otherwise you're holding all of the tension and the stress to get them to like you, versus fully expressing all the goodness that you have to share. So I think that mindset when you're just going in, I think is important, so that you stay connected to the belief in you versus needing them to believe in you.
Yeah, it's a good shift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so on that note, what advice would you give women entrepreneurs that you wish you had known when you were first starting out? This is probably one of our last questions. We're running out of time here. So what advice would you give to women entrepreneurs?
I'll answer it real quickly based on one thing that Julianne said, which is like, don't focus on competition, right? I think everybody always looks at like who else is out there and who else is doing it. And the reality is like starting a company and being successful requires so much dedication, focus, and it's execution. So even if someone's doing the exact same idea as you, it's all about execution and how it comes down to execution. So I would not waste any energy thinking about what your competition is and focus all of that into building your product. And to Julianne's point, like, especially women, they will get on the phone and talk to you about what they're doing, even if it is a direct competitor that's slightly different. Like, how did you think about this? And how did you build your e-com store? And, how do you think about paid advertising? Because at some point, like their success benefits your success and vice versa. And ultimately, there really are no two companies that are exactly the same. And so there is a more willingness to sort of share and grow. I found that fascinating when I was building Angel City. I've never run a professional sports team. I wasn't part of a professional sports team. So I didn't know like what the P&L was and where do you spend money and how do you make revenue? And I talked to, I don't know, a dozen people in different leagues and teams. And they gave me their P&Ls, which was beyond. And part of it, I think, was, well, a fan in LA, I'm not cannibalizing a fan in New York, right? It's a totally different animal beast. But in the other way, it's like the more revenue and the more attention and the more eyeballs and the more people that come to the league and ultimately the team, it grows the pie for everybody. And I just found that there was so much more of a willingness to share versus, what one thinks about, being more secretive and being more enclosed. So that would be the advice. Don't worry about competition. Find an incredible team. Don't be scared by the no's. And just, as long as you believe, don't give up.
Fantastic. Julianne?
I mean, I couldn't have said it better. I mean, I would just say if I could leave you with any advice, it would just be to have fun. At the end of the day, it is really, really hard work. And the focus and the attention and the late nights and the stress that you have of just starting a company, it's inevitable. So it's going to be there. So, on the human side, I would just say, make sure you're taking care of yourself as well. And that you're balancing, the execution with the nurture and making sure that, if you're not okay, then your company's not going to be okay. So make sure you put the oxygen mask on first, so that way your company can thrive. And I've experienced that personally of when I'm not okay, my company's not okay. And I need to take a day and I need to reset, and then I can come back stronger. And so there's also no blame or guilt in that either. You should just recognize, own it, deal with it, and then move on. So I think just taking ego out completely and just allowing yourself to nurture yourself through this process. Creativity is meant to be play. As kids, we have the biggest imaginations known to mankind, and then we lose it along the way, but we need to keep playing to keep that imagination going. So if you're just focused on the end result and you don't enjoy the journey, what's the point? So that would be my offering, is from human experience.
Thank you. Wonderful. How about Jovanna? You want to add to that and take us and this session before we go to the questions and answers?
Yeah, sure. I would say, I think about this question specifically as maybe if you're not interested or you're not ready to start something of your own right now, but maybe you are down the line. I'd say kind of that's sort of where I fit right now, is put yourself in places and seek opportunities where you're going to have the ability to learn. You're going to be challenged. You're going to be encouraged to fail and take big swings and big risks. I've talked about Apple at the beginning, and it's such a big, mature company. I mentioned the scale at which you launch. You can't mess things up. And so there's such an emphasis on perfection, which is, it's awesome to learn and just be in that environment, but that's not really conducive to developing yourself for future entrepreneurship opportunities, because you're not encouraged to fail and things like that. Whereas at Rent the Runway, we're really encouraged to take big swings, take big risks. And so that was just a natural progression for me career-wise. And I think it's just going to help set me up for the next thing. Always be learning. It's so, so important. Surround yourself with people you can learn from and a support system, even at wherever you choose to spend your time and dedicate your time. And then startups, can be are a lot of work. So I think finding a function, industry, or product that you're really passionate about will make a world of a difference. And a team you enjoy working with. You work really long hours. You work a ton, and it's just a lot. It's a lot better if you're a little bit more passionate about it and you really believe and trust your team and it feels like a safe space. And then just to touch on something that Julianne mentioned about just kind of pouring into yourself, learn to recognize what burnout looks for you, because I think it looks different for different people. And the sooner that you understand what it looks like for you, and you'll be able to identify it and sort of catch it before it gets really bad. And and then how people combat burnout is different by each person. So learn what it looks like for you and learn what combating it looks like for you. And then lastly, you have to be really, really resourceful. And just my favorite, there's like a Steve Jobs quote kind of around like, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. And so you just have to trust that the dots are going to connect and that you can figure out the next step. You can't have this huge plan because you don't know, you can't plan for everything, all the things that could happen, especially if you're starting something new where there isn't really a ton of precedent for. So you have to just trust that you're smart enough, you're going to hire smart enough people, you're scrappy enough and resourceful enough to kind of figure out the next step when you come to those different roadblocks. Yeah.
Thanks so much. You guys are like the walking examples of what you were saying, how women are so gracious and so helpful when it comes to helping others. And you guys are, embodying that right now. So why don't we turn it over to the audience? I think I'm going to hand it back to Laura, who's been curating the questions, right, Laura, why we've been talking?
Yes, I have. And thank you so much, Pam. That was an incredible discussion. I know I personally learned so much from all of you. We'll now begin our Q&A portion of the panel. If you haven't already, please submit your questions through Cvent. And our first question is, what advice do you have for someone who is interested in becoming an entrepreneur, but can't decide on what idea or purpose to pursue? And this is open to anyone to answer.
Join a startup. Like, you'll get ideas just working at a startup. Just find an industry even that you like. Like in LA, go to builtinla.com, which gives you jobs at a bunch of different startups. So like, just join one. And that way you can see, do you want to be in project management? Do you want to be in ops? Do you want to be in marketing? But as soon as you join one, and it's sort of what Jovanna said, which is like, you'll start to meet other people in startups and you start to hear about new opportunities. Then you'll go to lunch and you'll start talking about ideas. And you don't have to be the one with the idea. You can be part of the founding team if you've got some incredible skill set to bring to the table and some values. So just get yourself in the environment. So take the risk, join the startup, and the rest will just happen.
I actually just asked an entrepreneur this question. I started a podcast recently, and this was one of the questions I asked. And he said, like, people can often feel like it has to be a problem that they have themselves that they are going to work on, but it doesn't have to be. It could, try to ask people what other problems that they face or what challenges that they face. What are things that people create, like kind of observe what people create hacks for. Those like can be opportunities there. But yeah, it doesn't have to be something that's like personally a problem for you. I think that that could be where a lot of people go, but is there a problem that, maybe you're not faced with, but others are, that you'd be interested in trying to solve?
I would just reiterate everything they said. Whether it's finding something that you're interested in an area, so for me, it's mindfulness and fitness and dance, but it's also wine. And, finding, but the health benefits of wine, and so finding industries that you're passionate about, because I think, again, finding that passion within, you're probably going to be more fueled if it's something that you enjoy. So that could be a first start, but also just learning and listening, I think, is wonderful, Jovanna. Like, I think that's huge. I mean, especially after this last year too, even if you haven't experienced something personally, just listen to what's happening in the world and how can you be a part of helping the greater collective.
Great, thank you, everyone. The next question is, how do you balance entrepreneurship and personal time, family health, social relationships, mental health? How have you had to sacrifice anything to make time to lead these organizations?
I am not answering that question.
I was going to say, schedule it, find, like, you literally, my calendar is so important to me because, as silly as it may sound, I schedule breaks for myself. I schedule, time for family, because you can get so wrapped up in the excitement and the hurry and all of that you have to do it right now. But it's the balance. If your soul is fed, then, the execution will happen. But if you're burning out, like Jovanna said, like finding which, what yours are is going to be super helpful. But my calendar is imperative that I put everything in there. I put moments to breathe in my calendar just so that it's a reminder. And because sometimes we just get ahead of ourselves and we just, we just need little reminders every day. So I would say that, and definitely have sacrificed a lot, but those lessons of sacrifice have made me realize what I won't sacrifice in the future. And so it's all learning, and you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. So, it's all about learning. It's all about growing. Just start. You don't have to be perfect.
And don't sacrifice yourself. Like I did that in my first startup, and it doesn't create better results. Like you have to take care of yourself. And, I can say this like incredibly battle tested, but like if working out's important to you, like that is not something you give up on. Like you just don't. Like you schedule that and you do that every time. I have an insane sense of urgency. Like if I get an email, I need to respond. If I get a text, I need to respond. Nobody else in the world works that way. I've learned, like no one else has the same level of urgency, which is to say no one expects that. So if you can teach yourself like to slow down in moments and like put your phone away for dinner, and it's like, okay, if you're offline. In one of my companies, I had young kids. I told my team, I was like, I am offline from 4 to 7. Mm-hmm. That's it. My phone is down. If it's urgent, you call me. And like barely any phone calls, because something can keep, right? And so to Julianne's point, you have to schedule your time. You have to be a little selfish with it. You're still incredible. You're going to get everything done. Maybe you stay up an extra 30 minutes at night, which you would have done anyway, vegging in front of the TV. So like, you will want to be a martyr because you think it will make it all better, and it doesn't. So don't. And you'll actually be more productive. Even like, Jovanna was saying, like, you got to know when you're going to hit burnout. If you have to take a day off, your team knows before you know that you need to take a day off, right? So like they will be thankful, to hear that you're taking some you time, because they know you'll come back even more refreshed and better. And so do it.
Julie, you said something about being a martyr, and it's like, you don't have to work harder, but work smarter. And like, that's the whole concept behind it, I think. I used to push myself. The harder I did, the more I felt accomplished, but it's really not the case.
Yeah. Also, don't be afraid to outsource.
Yes.
I just this year was nuts, like working with Runway, and was working really insane hours. And I was like, it's really important for me to get healthy. Cooking every meal is not an option for me. I'm just going to sign up for meal delivery. I do that with like a lot of things, but you don't have to do it all.
That is a great point, Jovanna. That actually is one of the questions that we have is, what work did you immediately outsource to another person when starting your company? And what do you insist on owning no matter what?
Oh, I mean, it sort of depends, right? Because I always find you're two people. You have what you're really good at, and there's the thing that you love to do that you're not good at, but you're going to do no matter what, because it's like what you love. My mentor mentioned that like he's a great executive, but he loves PR. Like that's his thing. Like, so like, even though it's not normal for him to weigh in on all press releases, he will do that because that's what he loves and he gets better at it. And so for me, as the founder, like I can never give up financials. Like I have to own the financials. I have to understand them like there's no tomorrow. Even if, whether you hire a CFO or you outsource it, like you have to know what's going on. I never give up my relationship with the attorneys and the lawyers, because the second we're moved away again from any revenue or partnership opportunities, and I have to know what's going on. Like, so I never remove myself from financials or legal. And then for me, yes, my pet area, probably because he was my mentor, is PR, because I think storytelling is what makes and breaks companies. And getting this, we started Angel City in the middle of a pandemic. We started raising at the end of 2019. We closed our first round in February. We were building everything in the pandemic. The first person I hired was PR, because I knew that how we announced ourselves to the world, how we told our story was going to be more important and be more valuable than anything else I can do. And so spending 3 months with my head of communications PR, crafting the message and the story and who we're going to go to and why, I knew was going to, for me at least, was going to be the most important thing I could do. And so, so I don't give up finance, I don't give up legal, and I don't give up PR, because the storytelling is critical. The rest, marketing, acquisition, product development, those things I do. And the last thing I do give up, but you have to, if you're going to be moving really fast, is the voice of the company. And Julianne, you probably can talk to this, KINRGY is your voice, right? And so Angel City, yes, it's Kara, Natalie, my voice, but I'm sort of more the day-to-day. So in the emails, in the ads, in any communications, it's my voice and tone. And I teach everybody what it is. And once I feel comfortable that they can talk like I talk, right? And talk to our fans in the way that is, familiar and not businessy, then I will back up and totally walk away from all, from, relatively speaking, sort of the marketing and the acquisition type stuff, because you've got my voice. But until I'm comfortable that you have my voice and the way I want everybody to be talked to, I won't give that away. But that'll be the last thing I give away. And when you give that away, you can feel like this company can run, and you can now move on to now I can look 5 years in the future, right? So that's what I do.
Great, thank you. And that brings us to our final question from the Q&A, which is around the topic of mentorship, which I think is especially important to advance other women in entrepreneurship. So I'm curious what advice you have for those seeking mentorship from entrepreneurs like yourself, and if there's any mentors who have been really key in your own personal growth.
I've had so many mentors. I think I said a lot of them on this interview panel already. Denise Lambertson has also been a really wonderful resource for me. She's just so knowledgeable. And again, I try to go to females just because I actually have a lot of male mentors already. And so I want to be able to learn from people who also want to make a shift in what we're experiencing as a whole. We've definitely been male dominated, and so we're making a shift. So let's talk to the people that want to make those shifts too. And then honestly, I know this is kind of reversing back a little bit, but having really strong male allies is wonderful too. So not to just completely focus on women either, because you want that. You want the men to also shift with you and with the culture of what we're experiencing today too. I've had mentors and I've tried to diversify. So mentors within, financials, mentors within the fitness space, mentors within nutrition and supplements, marketing, PR, storytelling. I mean, literally diversify, because that's the most important thing, is to have a team of advisors or mentors that you really trust, that you can specifically ask questions surrounding that department or that division. And yeah, I think mentors are incredible. And as we've been talking about, I mean, just to reach out, I think you'll find that people actually really want to be able to share their knowledge. And it kind of makes you feel good, because at the end of the day, you're like, damn, I've accomplished a lot. And this was my journey and I get to share that, So I always think about, when you ask someone something, don't feel guilty. It's actually an opportunity for them to receive a moment to feel also good about themselves. It's like the gift of giving is actually in the giving and the receiving. It's not in just one or the other. So I would definitely just encourage everyone to reach out for mentors. I think they're extremely important.
Only thing I would add to that is I take sort of from a mentorship perspective, I take kind of an approach of mentoring others helps you to, I think to Julianne's point, kind of realize how much you've learned and kind of pay it forward. And then I think there's sort of mentorship and just learning from peers, which is something that just a concept that I've become a little very, very interested in recently, is just this idea of we hear, and there are so many podcasts and so many channels where we hear about people once they've achieved a certain level of success, but it's really interesting to hear from people while they're in the thick of sort of their journey. And I think I generally see as on their brink of greatness and breakthrough. So I've been trying to have just more conversations with people at that phase. And then actual mentors who are, maybe at the next level, next step that you want to be in your career. And mentors like also shift too, depending on like your career interests, your path. I had a set of mentors when I was at Apple, and I was just like in a different role and just different kind of like mindset, and was thinking about my career differently then than I am now. And so those have shifted a little bit. But I treat those relationships like I do my job, in that like I try to be like super, super prepared. When I do like performance reviews at work, I do like a personal review where I do that same work that I do based on like projects and accomplishments and business impact, from a very personal perspective. Like, what were my personal objectives for the year? What do I need to start doing? What do I need to stop doing? So I kind of treat it also just like I do my job and how I perform there as well.
The only thing I would say is I don't have a single mentor. I have different people that I go to for different things, because I find, the most valuable commodity today is time. And so I don't want to impose a lot of time, but like I've got one that I go to and talk about fundraising, and I have someone that I go to and talk about like, what's the best way to manage my board? And I have someone else that I talk to about product development. I have someone else I talk to about different things. So I just have a collection of people who are experts at what they do. And then I just go to each one of them when I need something. That way I'm not like always harassing one person. And then it also allows me to have this like incredible army of experts that have so much experience to give, where, 10 minutes with them is more valuable, right, than an hour with someone that's more well-rounded. So collecting people that are great in their field, I think, is also not thought of as traditional mentorship, but I found it to be incredibly valuable.
Great. Well, that concludes our panel. Thank you so much for attending today's discussion on women in entrepreneurship, the challenges and triumphs. A huge thank you to our amazing panelists, Julie, Julianne, and Jovanna, and of course to our moderator, Pam. We will now have a 1-hour break for lunch. During the break, please feel free to join the afternoon break session and network with other attendees at your leisure. Join us back in the afternoon break session at 1:25 p.m. Pacific time for a comedic set to energize yourself for the afternoon.